Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon, Department of English, VSST College, Kanpur. We are doing paper on linguistics and this module number 30 is Speech, Act and Discourse Analysis has been written by Ms. Anushka Adhikari, an independent researcher, University of Hyderabad. Language is the most intrinsic and a complex semiotic system that human beings have developed to satiate their social need for communication. Eventually, it helps them to maintain the social and cultural relations. We all know that linguistic communication cannot be achieved by individual sounds, words, or sentences alone. These linguistic units are put together which are contextually defined and take part of the discourse. Some examples: congratulations, no war, yes peace, Devika was here. All the above mentioned examples are secluded words, phrase or a sentence, but all of them give an idea to us as to when, where and who has spoken them. For linguists, these are real instances of languages. Example 1, congratulations may mean that somebody has applauded someone else's success. Example 2, no war, yes peace may state a line written on a placard which talks about peace on earth. Example 3 means that the above mentioned line may be scribbled on a stone wall, on a fort, or may be neatly typed in the script of a play. What is a speech act? All linguistic communication involves linguistic acts. The unit of linguistic communication is not, as has generally been supposed, the symbol, word, or sentence, but rather the production or issuance of the symbol, word, or sentences in the performance of the speech act. A study of speech acts enables the understanding of the social, psychological, cultural, historical, and similar other dimensions of communication. They are not mere artificial linguistic constructs as it may seem. Their understanding, together with the acquaintance of context in which they are performed, are often essential for decoding the whole utterance and its proper meaning. A speech act in linguistics and the philosophy of language is an utterance that has performative function in language and communication. There are more ways of killing a cat than drowning it in butter, but this is the sort of thing, as the proverb indicates, we overlook. There are more ways of outraging speech than contradiction merely. It was said by John Langshaw Austin. The contemporary use of the term goes back to J.L. Austin's development of performative utterances and his theory of locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary acts. Speech acts are commonly taken to include such acts as promising, ordering, greeting, warning, inviting, and congratulating. The concept speech act was proposed by John Langshaw Austin, one of the founders of pragmatics, in the series of William James lectures which were delivered by him at Harvard in 1955. Eventually, his work was published in the book entitled How to Do Things with Words in 1965. This concept was later developed by John Searle. Now you see that this is the speech act theory which has three parts: perlocutionary act, locutionary act, and illocutionary act. What are these? Let us discuss them. Locutionary act is the act of saying something with a certain meaning and reference. For example, don't go to the jungle. This sentence counts as a warning. Don't go to the jungle. The speaker is trying to persuade someone not to go to the jungle, which is considered dangerous in that particular context. You should study harder. It is illocutionary act referred to as the act performed in saying something. Illocutionary force is the speaker's intent, a true speech act. For example, he informed me about the corruption of the committee members. This counts as an information. The speaker's intention is to transfer the information to the listener. Leave the room. It counts as an order. The speaker has ordered the listeners to leave the room. Now, here is the classification for types of illocutions: assertive, directive, and commissives. Assertives, it represents a state of affairs like stating, claiming, suggesting, hypothesizing, telling, insisting, asserting, or describing. For example, I saw a beautiful flower which was plucked by a girl. Then we have directives, speech acts that are to cause the hearer to take a particular action like request, command, and advise. Close the window, that is an example of directive. Then we have commissives, those speech acts that commit a speaker to some future action. For example, promises and oaths. Example, I will return this pen to you tomorrow. That's a promise. Speech acts that express on the speaker's attitudes and emotions towards the proposition are called expressives. For example, congratulations, excuses, and thanks. Sample sentences, your speech was commendable. Then we have declarations, speech acts that change the reality in accord with the proposition of the declaration. For example, baptism, pronouncing someone guilty, or pronouncing someone husband and wife. For example, I now pronounce you man and wife. Speech acts that have an effect on the feelings, thoughts, or actions of either the speaker or the listener, like persuading, convincing, scaring, enlightening, inspiring, or otherwise affecting the listener. While examining perlocutionary acts, the effect on the hearer or reader is emphasized. For example, I have an extra concert ticket for the Coldplay. Would you like to attend it? She persuaded me to shoot him. This counts as convincing someone. The speaker tried to make the listener shoot somebody. Now, a proposition is a statement in either a natural or a formal language for which it makes sense to ask whether it is either true or false. An assertion is a statement which one claims to be true. For example, in a logic textbook we read, "It's raining" as an example of a proposition. This is not an assertion. I look out of the window and say, "It's raining." From the context, it is clear that I am asserting this proposition to be true. Hence, it is an assertion. Discourse analysis, popularly known as DA or discourse studies, is a general term for study of the ways in which language is used in text and context, written as well as spoken. It involves the use of language in a running discourse continued over a number of sentences and involving the interaction of a speaker or writer and auditor or reader in a specific situational context and within a framework of social and cultural conventions, unquote. This was said by Abrams and Harpum in Glossary of Literary Terms. This contrasts with types of analysis more typical of modern linguistics, which are chiefly concerned with the study of grammar, the study of smaller chunks of language such as sounds, phonetics and phonology, part of words, morphology, meaning, semantics, and the order of words in sentences, that is known as syntax. Discourse analysis study larger chunks of languages as they flow together as a text. Text analysis focuses on the structure of written language as found in such texts as essays, notices, road signs, and chapters. This was said by Crystal in 1987. He also said, some scholars talk about spoken or written discourse, other about spoken or written text. Unquote. You can see in this diagram devices for discourse analysis. We have reframing, turn-taking, discourse markers, cohesion or Grice's maxim. They are all known as devices for discourse analysis. Reframing is a way to talk about going back and reinterpreting the meaning of the first sentence. Frame analysis is a type of discourse analysis that asks what activity are speakers engaged in when they say this. What do they think they are doing by talking in this way at this time? Consider how hard it is to make sense of what you are hearing or reading if you don't know who is talking or what the general topic is. When you read a newspaper, you need to know whether you are reading a news story, an editorial, news, or an advertisement in order to properly interpret the text you are reading. Turn-taking is a type of organization in conversation and discourse where participants speak one at a time in alternating turns. It involves processes for constructing contributions, responding to previous comments, transitioning to a different speaker, using a variety of linguistic and non-linguistic cues. There are different ways of indicating that a turn will be changed. Formal methods, for example, selecting the next speaker by name or raising a hand. Then we have, for instance, a question requires an answer by naming. Then intonation, for instance, a drop in pitch or in loudness. Gestures, for instance, a change in sitting position or an expression of inquiry. The most important device for indicating turn-taking is through a change in gaze direction. We have discourse markers. What is a discourse marker? A discourse marker is a word or a phrase that plays a role in managing the flow and structure of discourse. They are referred to more commonly as linking words and linking phrases or sentence connectors. Without sufficient discourse markers in a piece of writing, a text would not seem logically constructed and the connections between the different sentences and paragraphs would not be obvious. Some of the examples are however, now, then, because, okay, etc. on your screen. Now, cohesion is also very important to understand whenever we are talking about discourse. Cohesion refers to the ties and connections which exist within text that link different parts of sentences or larger unit of discourse. Then we have anaphoric relation, interpretation of text from some previously expressed idea entity. For example, he did that there. If I know what has gone before, then I'll be able to understand it or decode it in a proper sense. We also have cataphoric relations. It means referring forward. It refers the identity which is being expressed and what is to be expressed. For example, here is the 9 o'clock news that it is coming the 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is approaching and we will have this 9 o'clock news. It is going to be 9. 4 maxims. Grice set 4 maxims which say that in conversational exchanges, the participants are in fact cooperating with each other. First is maxim of quantity, second is maxim of quality, then we have maxim of relation and then maxim of manner. Speaking of speech acts is reflexive language use. We have been focused on one of its types, meta-communication, which is brought about by the conversationalist when they refer to parts of their discourse. A problem for the discourse analyst is to decide when a particular feature is relevant to the specification is required. So you must have understand the importance of speech act theory. Whenever we talk about discourse, we talk about speech act, then there are certain, it is not in a vacuum. It is just according to a particular theory propounded by various theorists. So we have taken it in consideration how important they are. So just considering its importance, I am just going to show another video that is again important for you to understand, and just go through this video and try to know certain more things from this video, and I hope you will enjoy it and understand this important topic of linguistics. Keep reading, keep learning. Thank you for visiting EPG Pathshala.